people want to build things with AI and radically change the way their businesses and their lives operate. My background is I'm a self-taught machine learning engineer. How you turn that business problem that the customer has into something that can deliver real value on ROI, and understanding that process and making sure that we have the right fit customer, that kind of thing. I'd say that's our biggest challenge. Now people are really starting to plow money into it because they can see how powerful it can be. I would say that a good business in this space knows how to wrangle data effectively. And I'd say a lot of AI businesses are essentially wrappers around existing systems like ChatGPT or other services like that. Not many companies out there that can build this stuff to a degree of quality that I think is acceptable. But we build things that are just like ridiculously good. You're like, I'm going to fail that. But if I say, here's the invoice and it's going to save you $2 million a year, you're like, wow. So you have to go through like a period of like going, actually, this one is genuinely good. The previous one is not very good. There's so much people don't realize is AI, It is like looking into the abyss of going, what am I doing? Wow. I'm actually quite excited.
Good afternoon, Jordan.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Very good, thanks. I want to welcome you to our podcast. Jordan Legg, Chief AI Officer at takara.ai.
That's right.
AI is the buzzword, everybody's talking about it, a lot of people are using it.
Yeah.
Just by way of background, tell us a little bit about you, Takara, and what is AI? Because there are still people who don't really know what it is.
Sure, so maybe I'll start at the beginning. What is AI? AI is a statistics machine. It creates predictions based on data that it's learned. My background is I'm a self-taught machine learning engineer. And in my first business where I was building sales and marketing data, I had a huge corpus of data that I tried to get good insights out of my clients. And so the only real way to do that is by studying that data and then trying to extract good information out of that by using like a custom built machine learning model. So you use it, you train it, and it took me a year to learn how to do that and make my first algorithm. And then that was the 5 years of my life running IA, which was from my bedroom all the way to a multi-million-pound business with employees and everything, which is an interesting foray. And then last year I closed that business and started Takara, which is more about building AI machine learning applications for all types of industries and everything, and using my knowledge that I gained in my last business to help people in theirs now.
Wow. And when you say it's basically statistics machine,
Yes.
so for example, I've used ChatGPT and I put in some text and asked it to reformat it.
Yeah.
How does that relate to statistics?
Well, because, the way large language models work is they're trained on huge amounts of text.
Right.
And so the statistics is, let's say you're reformatting that text is, I think that the person that's asked for this query, this is what they want to see in this format. And it bases that output on all the historical text it's learned from before.
Right.
So the statistics is in the prediction of what format it wants that to be in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And so on different modalities, it's all the same. So with audio, it's a similar thing. With images, it's a similar thing. With text, it's a similar thing. But in the background, it's all math and it's all statistics.
So is it getting like more and more intelligent as time goes on and as more people use it? So more queries being put in, more data is coming out?
I think that's where they want to get to. We're starting to see a little bit of that with ChatGPT's new memory feature, where it starts to learn a bit more about you and feed that in. Currently, most of the models are static. So they do a static training phase, and then they release that checkpoint, and then that's the new model that's out. And then they'll take all the stuff that you send into the model, they'll do another retraining phase with some new data, and then they'll make that a static model. But I think where they want to get to is they want to get to a place where, it's continuously learning. And there's plenty of good examples in the real world of smaller models that are continuously learning.
Such as?
Weather models. They quite often retrain, revalidate.
Right.
When changing weather patterns happen to do real-time or quarterly forecasting. So let's say you have a model checkpoint that's running and it says that it's going to rain on Thursday. Maybe the weather somewhat changes. You immediately take that data, you retrain the model, and then you do a new forecast.
Right.
So it's that sort of what we call MLOps pipeline. It's a machine learning operations pipeline where you have this pipeline of model checkpoint, something's changed, retrain the model, then test that model to see if it's better than the other one, and then redeploy it and then get you meet your model that way. So, yeah.
Do you think people need to be cautious about the way they use things like ChatGPT and the information they are putting in? Because I feel like people are getting very comfortable now with asking questions and maybe uploading information or documents.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that AI, just like any other piece of technology, I would say don't put information that you wouldn't want to share with any other system into AI. AI is no different than anything like a database or a website or something you don't trust. Don't give it your contact information. Don't give it your credit card information.
Names.
These sort of things that are pretty standard in all cybersecurity. I would view it that way. It's no different. I think the only difference with security with AI is the visibility into the biases AI might have and the potential for what the AI could do with that information. But ultimately, with data you're putting into it, treat it like any other system.
From our perspective as end users, AI suddenly arrived out of nowhere in the last, year to 2 years.
Yeah.
But has AI been in development for many, many years, or
The 80s.
since the 80s?
Oh, yeah, and probably before that.
Wow.
Yeah, a great deal. Yeah, a great deal. And it's gone through many stages of improving performance. Arguably, probably one of the biggest inflection points was in 2017 when Google came out with this amazing paper called Attention is All You Need. And that was making this thing called the transformer. And that transformer is the basis for all large language models today. So Google took that transformer to make their model and they made a better Google search. And then OpenAI took that transformer and they made something called ChatGPT with it. So that's the major inflection point. That's why we're seeing so much improvement in performance, is because in 2017 they came up with that. Then OpenAI did a bunch of work, and now people are really starting to plow money into it because they can see how powerful it can be.
Because I've seen a lot of businesses advertising their services, their AI skill services to companies to help, which is obviously something that you guys do as well. And I've just thought, well, have all these people suddenly arrived? Where have they come from?
Absolutely, they just appeared out of nowhere.
Well, that's what it feels like, and you're probably going to say it's not quite like that.
It's not quite like that because AI is just one piece of the puzzle with any system. With any client that we work with, 90% of it is data. It's a data problem. Like if you have all your documents in PDF format, you have to build something that can extract that data, clean that data, and then eventually it gets to the AI bit that then does something interesting with it. But the 90% of that is in data. So I would say that a good business in this space knows how to wrangle data effectively. And I'd say a lot of AI businesses are essentially wrappers around existing systems like ChatGPT or other services like that. They might offer services on prompt engineering, and they might offer services which just basically call out to ChatGPT with a particular task or thing, and then they call it AI and mark it up 10 times or something like that. Whereas we're building, applications from the ground up, that solve extremely complex business problems. Yeah.
So if I was a business owner and I was looking at using AI in my business to create efficiency or increase profitability, anything like that, what would you suggest that I should look for in a company I'm going to engage with? Because like you say, there are so many out there now. It's probably quite hard to choose who's going to be the best fit for your business or who's going to have the experience or skills that you really need.
Yeah, it's a good point. Looking for a partner, I think it's really important that they understand the fundamentals of AI and don't just have AI as a thing, right? Does this partner, for example, have some sort of open source initiative where they do actual research? Do they have some sort of initiative where they are a serious player in the AI space and not just another technology partner? Because that usually determines whether someone is just plugging things together and just go, there you go, or someone that really actually understands how a lot of this stuff is really built and really put together, and you get a much better solution, and you can deliver much higher value that way. So I would look for a partner that really understands, like Takara, because we quite often use really good fundamental research from the open source community, as well as many of the universities like MIT, and we turn those into really high quality business outcomes for people. Whereas many other companies wouldn't do that. They would just take something that is off the shelf that maybe works 30, 40%. Good. No worries. There you go. We'll go the extra mile and build something really special.
Do you find that the people who come to you for help always know exactly what they need, or
No.
does the output actually look very different to what they expect at the beginning?
Well, the output is always, relevant to their business outcome. We have two different kinds of customer, I would say. Ones that have a problem already that they want us to help solve. And that's always really great. And then there's another type of customer which they've heard about AI and they want to do something, but they don't know exactly where they should start or what does that mean for them. And that's always more difficult because, we're a technology company and we have to work with them to figure out where the problems lie in their business and then deliver a good proof of concept or MVP that could deliver real value. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And do you ever speak to anyone and say, you actually don't really need to build something, or you don't need to spend this much on AI? Because I feel like there's a lot of advice out there at the moment that's like, you must use AI in your business. If you're not using it, then you're really like missing a trick.
Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of times where I've said, look, you can use this existing system, or this is not really AI, this is just a normal application. You could just build for it. There's plenty of instances that I've told people that, it's probably a better way to do that than just essentially a lot of people just thinking they can just smash a whole bunch of data into ChatGPT and just have it just solve the problem, which is fine, but it's pretty expensive at scale to do that. You're not paying like the little pro thing, you're paying per token, and that gets quite expensive very quickly if you do it in the wrong way.
Right. So you started relatively recently in terms of Takara.
Yeah.
What made you do that, and what was the challenge of starting up a business? Because our podcast, we feature business people with new ideas who then go on to create businesses, and everybody, they have this belief in this idea, but turning it into reality is the challenge, and that's what we like to explore.
Yes, it's a huge challenge because there's many things. Well, first of all, I wanted to start Takara with my co-founders because there's an obvious need in the market where people want to build things with AI and radically change the way their businesses and their lives operate. And our motto is transforming humanity. We want to transform the way that people, live and work forever with the solutions that we make. And there's an obvious gap, especially in this country, for companies that can deliver that at a quality that I would say is acceptable for them.
Yeah.
And not just a little product that you can just buy off the shelf that does something random and then, it goes to the wayside. And the challenges I think for us have been aligning, our internal sales process with what the market wants. And that's been something that's been very difficult because it's been a very fast moving industry. And it's been an industry where, it's maturing very quickly as well with what customers understand about AI and what they understand it can do for them. And also how we interpret what their business needs are to the solution that we build and how we sell that back to them. So I'd say like the most difficult thing for us and as a business wasn't anything to do with the technical side. We got that covered. But it's all about productization, and it's about, how you turn that business problem that the customer has into something that can deliver, real value on ROI, and understanding that process and making sure that we have the right fit customer, that kind of thing. I'd say that's our biggest challenge.
And how have you dealt with it? Is it something you and your partners have had experience of doing that before, or have you brought in external advisors? How have you managed to deal with that?
Well, from July 1st, we grew exceptionally. I was CEO until July 1st, and I took on 4 other people into the team. We got Paul, that used to be at Nordcloud IBM as a CTO. He's our CTO. We took on Chris Stevens as an FD. He's amazing. My dad became CEO, who's been commercial sales director for many tech firms over the last 25 years. And we took on a head of product, Carlos Nicholas, as well, that's from pre-sales and product for many tech businesses. And that was obviously a massive change because I brought in essentially 50 odd years worth of experience into the business.
Yeah.
And suddenly things start moving
right
a lot quicker. Things like SOWs, MSAs, building all these playbacks, building all this stuff for the clients and making sure you get that wraparound treatment for the clients. So they go from idea to here's a diagram of what this could look like, and this is how it's going to come together. And that just got a lot more streamlined. Yeah, so that was a big change.
Were there any challenges in growing that quickly and, onboarding this team?
No, I mean, we'd been talking for a long time. So it wasn't like a single day thing on board, that kind of thing. We've been talking for a little while. So it was a nice transition. It went really, really well. And there was a lot of kinks that worked out with just operational process things that we've slowly but surely just kind of just smashed through brute force style. So yeah, but it's been really good. I'm super happy that they're here.
And did you take any learnings from having your first business into this business, or were there things that you thought, I'm definitely going to do that differently this time, or actually I would do this the same?
Yeah, you know what? Like in my first business, obviously, everyone's first business, and I encourage everyone to start one just to see how it is, because it is like, it is like looking into the abyss of going, what am I doing? And that never leaves you, regardless of what business you're running. You always feel like you don't know what you're doing. But between my first business and this one, it's a almost completely different business, right? Because even though they're both tech businesses, this one's a service-based business. We do professional services, and the last one was a product-based business, right? We were selling product. But one of the things I really wanted to get done quickly is establish a brand and be more local. I didn't do any real marketing. I didn't do any real vocal stuff. It was all word of mouth. I was being an engineer and being too locked into my bedroom and just like writing code and just hoping that it was going to be good. Whereas this time I've taken much more of a front seat and tried to like actively drive the business forward publicly anyways. Yeah.
That transition is quite significant, though. It's part of those growing pains, isn't it?
Yes.
And when you first run your own business, or it's not when you run your own business, when you've got this idea, there's no real concept, is there, of, well, I need to have a brand, or I need to have, if I've got employees, I need to have staff contracts, or I might need to pay the rent. It's, I want to do X, and X is what you proceed to do. And you mature as a business person, don't you?
Absolutely, very quickly as well.
Yeah. Well, what I liked as well is the fact you said you've brought in what sound like fairly senior people with a lot of experience.
Yes, exactly.
I read this statistic the other day that a lot of recruitment companies are now saying that anybody over the age of 57 is considered too old to work.
Oh, really?
And yet, both us, EFM and MPA, we employ people or utilize the services of people over that age, because age brings huge experience. Yeah. And I think what you've said is, I mean, I don't know the age of any of the people you've engaged, but they're probably of an age where they provide those years of experience as wisdom to you in growing that.
Absolutely, they work harder than I do, that's for sure.
Are you standing there with a whip,
No, that's Marty's job. That's the CEO job.
Right.
I just worry about technology now, which is where I should be.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things I wanted to change with this business is like knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then filling those gaps. People that can do that a lot better. In technology with engineering, it's more difficult to find good engineers in a particular space as they get older, just because it's just unbelievable the rate of change in technology. Like, you have to be on it, and you have to stay with it, or it just completely eclipses you. Like, if I stop reading scientific papers, I'll be out of date within 4 weeks.
Really?
That's how fast it is. That's how fast it is. Whereas other business functions, they translate extremely well. Commercially, product-based stuff, no worries. You can take a whole bunch of different experience from all different types of businesses and translate that pretty well, because ultimately you're selling a solution to a client that has a problem, and everything else can almost be inferred from different times. It always helps if they come from the same domain, but with the engineering side, it's like you have to have people that are super agile, super dynamic, and they know their stuff.
How can you manage that within the business? Because you're a technical person, so probably reading the papers is quite easy, but for the other functions and other experts, how much of that information do they need, or how do you go about kind of matching information sharing?
Yeah, so I mean, some of it they're learning probably by osmosis, slowly, but we have a commercially qualified stage and then technical qualified stage in our sales pipeline. So, they don't really engage me at all until it gets that sort of technical stage where they have to like start qualifying the opportunity or whatever that might be in a technical way. So that gives that demarcation point between commercial and technical, which is easy. They don't need to know how like the model is built. They just need to know what can be technically done and ask me for guidance on whether a solution can be done, if it can be done in a certain time scale, those kind of things. So it's fairly easy from that perspective, and that makes it much more streamlined than having to like train, your end salespeople. Let's say on like how these models are put together. It's just, the customer doesn't care.
No,
They don't care. All they want to know is, can this be done? Can it be done at 80% accuracy?
and presumably at the right price as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah. And I've got two questions, particularly on that one then. Is pricing it is that quite a challenge with this technology changing so fast? I mean, I don't know where the costs come in, whether it's the skill set of people like you or whether it's the underlying software. Does that prove a challenge in this market?
Yes, it does. I would say AI systems done well are not cheap. That's for sure.
Is that because of the developer costs or?
Yeah, it's because of the engineering cost.
Right.
Because of the engineering cost. And you have to do a lot of what's called evaluations on the system itself. So you can tell the client or tell somebody that it actually functions at the sort of rate that you say that it does.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time.
Right.
Sometimes, depending on the model, depending on what you're building, it could take, a few days, or it could take a few weeks.
Yeah.
Some of them could probably even take months,
Yeah.
depending on what you're building, right? And that's what is majorly different from normal technology. Also, the kind of solutions that we build are usually quite complex. They're solving complex business problems, which take in data from all different types of data types and have to go through all different types of like cleaning stages and normalization stages. So there's a lot of engineering in building the system, building the infrastructure to host that system, and then the AI piece as well. So I'd say engineering time is quite big. AI engineers are expensive, It's tough to find one. I wouldn't say you could find them under £1,000 a day
Right.
as a rate.
Right.
Whereas like typical DevOps or full stack engineers, probably like between 300 and 600 a day. So
Right.
yeah, but at the end of the day, like as long as you can show the client you can get a decent ROI,
Yeah.
and you can build a system in a decent time frame, it's great.
Yeah. So is that part of your output, if you like, or when you're doing the design phase, you're saying it's going to cost you, for sake of argument, £50,000, but you'll save £80,000 over this time frame as well, and so you put that to the client before they sign anything.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. We want to understand our client's business because it enables us to make an easier sale, right?
Yeah.
We're quoting something that is probably going to cost about 250K just to do an MVP.
Yeah.
But it's going to save them $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Right. So it's to put that in perspective. If you just said it's going to cost $250K, but there's the invoice.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to pay that. But if I say here's the invoice and it's going to save you $2 million a year, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Seems obvious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we like to do those ROIs. Plus, we can leverage funding from our partners like Ingram Micro and AWS that we work closely with. So there's always that they can help out.
What happens in terms of, as you were saying about how quickly the technology is developing?
Yeah.
So how does that work in terms of businesses who might be adopting some sort of AI? Like how are they meant to keep up with the rate of change, or do they not need to kind of perfectly keep up with it?
I wouldn't worry so much about like the rate of change in that perspective, because if you're building a system and the system works the way it should do and delivers good value, then I wouldn't really worry about if there's a model that comes out that's perhaps 1 or 2% better, or maybe it's significantly less costly to run and whatever like that. If it's delivering good value for you, leave it alone. It's good. Revisit it in a year's time, maybe, when you can justify the engineering cost to swap something out or change it again. I wouldn't really worry about that too much. I would say where it's really interesting from our perspective, why I worry about it so much, is because new things come out that enable use cases that weren't possible to do before.
Right.
to happen. And that's good for me to know, because then when I listen to a client, or when I'm listening to whatever, I can go, I know we can solve this in this way. This is possible now. It wasn't possible 6 months ago, but it is now.
Yeah.
So that's what I need to worry about. And does the client need to worry about that? Nah, not really. They should just stay close to us. Hey, we've got this issue. We've got that problem. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Yeah, we think you can do this. Yeah. That's what it should be, I think.
Right. One of the things you said earlier on is you recognise that your skill set is engineering. And
Yeah.
Was that a gradual thing, or did you kind of wake up one morning and thought, actually, look, I'm doing all this other stuff, but I'm much better focused on engineering, and I should find other sources to do the commercial and to do the finance and to do all the other aspects?
I've worked closely with my dad for a long time.
Right.
With my last business, I worked very closely with him, and we spoke greatly about starting Takara.
Yeah.
He was working at another firm at the time, and we both decided, let's do this. So I pulled the trigger immediately.
Yeah.
Pulled the name and everything.
Yeah.
And then he thought about really building that commercial acumen around that business. So it's been as much his baby that it has been mine, really. From a technical standpoint, I've really fed this machine, but commercially, it's been a while for my father and his experience and bringing those people in.
Right, but it's the recognition of your own skill set that is, because sometimes people don't recognise that. I mean, one of the things they say about any business person is when they have these ideas, is to recognise what you're good at and what you're not good at, and therefore you bring in HR, you bring in finance, you bring in commercial, either outsource or in-house, but because they're not the skills that you have. And certainly we find professionally, I think, that a lot of business owners, they run their businesses and they don't bring in the right skill sets, and then we come in at a later point and find there's maybe a bit of a mess that needs cleaning up, whereas you've done it very early on. So to me, that shows quite a great deal of insight into your own, or maybe it's your dad's, but whatever, it's a recognition.
I know what I'm good at. I'm good as an engineer, and I'm good for my clients as an engineer. And I can translate, business problems to really good outcomes.
Yeah.
And everything else should be done by people better than me.
Yeah.
And there's some bits in engineering that I don't do well, and I want to find people to plug those gaps as well.
Right.
So then I can focus on doing what I do best, because that's where it's most valuable.
That takes a great deal, I think, of self-awareness.
It does, yeah.
But I also think that business owners do want to sometimes cling on to things because they've built it. It's like that baby.
It's my baby.
They don't want to give, or maybe they don't trust that other people are going to deliver it in the way that they feel it should be delivered. So you've kind of spoken about how the rest of your team have the right years of experience, but how did you find people that shared the same ambition for the business as you do, and I kind of want to see it go in the same direction?
I think, the news has sold everything to everybody. The AI is a thing. And we all recognized at the same time, that there is not many companies out there that can build this stuff to a degree of quality that I think is acceptable, or that we think is acceptable. And so the opportunity was obvious. It was obvious. So there wasn't really too much of a sort of selling phase. We all realized that there's a huge amount of opportunity out there. And so we just did it.
Yeah. One of the things that occurs to me though, because you mentioned, for example, engineering is expensive.
Yes.
Say you're running a 5-6 person business, you're turning £1 to £2 million over a year. And certainly what I've seen from companies is that small companies, there's often a lot of manual processes and so on that could probably be achieved by AI or automation. I don't know if they're the same or one is a subset of the other, but they can't afford those kinds of numbers. Are there small scale AI solutions?
Yeah, there's plenty of off-the-shelf things that can automate various bits and pieces. Again, it just depends on what kind of business it is and where those problems are.
Right.
And then it takes a little bit of Google searching to find some bits and pieces to do various processes. I can imagine, one of the biggest things I think that's very difficult to do, even with off-the-shelf stuff, is like connecting different third-party systems together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is like rife for AI, but it's super complicated because you've got to translate Chinese, basically Chinese from one system into English on the other side and make sure that happens. And it never messes up like one time because people expect 100%, of course. So yeah, for small businesses, there's plenty of options. We don't typically sell to small businesses because our applications are really complex and really, really big. You know, we're usually targeted at like sort of T2 enterprise, you know, small, medium enterprise businesses, because their problems are usually bigger, and then they can afford to do big projects. Yeah, it's small business. It's more difficult to sell those professional services. I would recommend they would like probably hire directly an ML engineer for a set period of time to fix something really complex if they can find something off the shelf that can do what they want, because that might be cheaper than like accessing burn. Yeah, as a small business anyways.
Right. So do you have a minimum size firm that you work with?
It's not on the size of the firm. You know, we work with startups that have innovation funding.
Right.
We've worked with startups that have VC backing, that are very small. You know, but I would say majority of the time we work with large customers, SMEs, T2 enterprise type businesses, everything from, you know, banks, gambling, retail, those kind of companies. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And what is your ambition for takara.ai? If you look at 5 or 10 years into the future, 10 years might be quite far, but where do you hope it to go?
Well, you know, I hope to just be a really, you know, amazing group of people where we just build some really impressive solutions. You know, I'm really proud at building, you know, state-of-the-art solutions for any business and any person, right? You know, stuff that nobody can touch in terms of quality and performance. You know, things that really push the bar out in terms of performance, and that's what I want it to be. I want it to be like, you know, OpenAI does really great research and they build a thing. I want to be like OpenAI, but for like, you know, services and custom applications for our clients, right? But we build things that are just like ridiculously good, and we're just a group of like-minded people that can do that. If we can achieve that, I'll be super happy. I'll be super happy because I just know that any problem, I'm just going, great. Bring him over. Me and the AI team will just smash it out straight away. There you go. And, you know, and they come to us because they know that Takara can do it, and they know that nobody else could do it like we could do it. Wicked. I'll be happy with that.
Is the pace of development in AI such that you can replace yourself in 10 years' time with AI tools providing the solutions, the AI solutions to the problems that are created?
Yeah, you know, in 10 years, it might be possible, actually. You know, a lot of the coding can be done now with AI. You know, using tools like Cursor AI, really fantastic. And in 10 years, it's certainly possible that you could get like an AI software engineer to build a lot of this stuff. Yeah, you know, in 10 years, it could really be possible. It could really be possible. Yeah, for sure. I think where the problem comes into it though is still in the data problem. It's getting that data, which usually companies have their data in a mess, and then translating that into something that the AI can then work with. And that's always very difficult. So that's going to be your biggest difficulty point. And make sure that the models that you're using are up to date enough to use, you know, the existing frameworks or innovations that are out at the moment. You know, for example, like if ChatGPT is currently out and its knowledge is up to last December, well, if I try and build something with the software that was made last week, it's not going to know about it. So it's still going to need that piece. But in 10 years, you know, 10 years is a long time. So,
yeah. No, it was just a thought, because obviously there's a lot of talk about automation in terms of vehicles and, you know, I know, is it San Francisco? They've got the taxis that are robot taxis.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, because I was reading a journalist report saying that, in fact, also a friend of mine, his son was in, I think it was San Francisco, and they had an app and they ordered a taxi and it turned up and he got in and there's no driver and it just took them from wherever to wherever. And I was just thinking, that's working, that's happening, you know. And it's saving lives, because apparently the potential for accidents is reduced when there's a robot in charge versus a human.
That's quite amazing.
It is quite amazing, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that counts as AI or not. I mean, AI is quite a broad definition, isn't it?
It's huge. Yeah. People always, sometimes people come out and like, that's not going to do anything and it's not that powerful. I'm like, okay, drive 90 miles an hour down the M1 and see if you don't get a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Because that's AI as well.
Right.
It has to read your number plate.
Yeah.
90 miles an hour.
Right.
It does that with computer vision. That's an AI model.
I was just told on your iPhone, if you search for a photograph, that's AI driven as well.
Absolutely. There's so much people don't realize is AI, self-checkout scanner uses some AI in it as well.
Yeah.
I went to Sainsbury's and it used the camera on the scale to figure out what fruit I put on there. So when it weighed it, it went, oh, this is a banana, and then it just gave me a price for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just super simple stuff. It is everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Yeah.
Right. Because there's a lot of data automation as well and neuro-linguistic programming. So what are they, subsets of AI, or are they different branches, or?
You mean NLP?
Yeah.
Yeah, so NLP is a subset. A lot of large language models fall under NLP as well. Just understanding the language of both text and prompts. Man, it's such a huge industry because humans like to classify things. They like to categorize things. So, in our brains, we like to go, this is there, and that's there, and that's there, and that's there, right? So, NLP is a really amazing process. Now you can use large language models to do all of it and just basically just sending it a bunch of data and just going, right, categorize all these things for me. Really, no worries. NLP is just a subset of that. It used to be like what we call k-means clustering for old NLP chatbots. Remember those really terrible chatbots at the bank? Well, that's because they were trained off probably like the bank's internal data, which was like that. And ChatGPT is trained off something like that.
Yeah.
So that's where the real benefits come in on that side. Yeah.
What do you think are the barriers to adoption of AI? Because when you're talking about the bank chat, I was thinking about there's some really infuriating pieces of technology you come across. Sometimes it's like chatbots where you can just never reach the person, or you never get the answer you're looking for because they're trying to route you down these weird paths. Why are more companies not adopting AI to just improve things like customer experience?
Well, I think the chatbot one is an interesting one because people have had such a horrendous experience with old chatbots that when you say to someone, here's a new chatbot, they go, oh, here we go. So you have to go through like a period of like going, actually, this one is genuinely good. The previous one is not very good. The other big major barrier for chatbots is bringing your own proprietary business information to that chatbot, so that chatbot, when it talks to your customer or it does something, has the knowledge of what your business is and isn't just some generic thing that just talks to someone and gives them a few options on the screen. Because ultimately you want the customer to have a decent experience. Klarna Bank just did that, and their customer service went up to 80% from 60 or something, which is ridiculously good.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, they were the first people to really deploy a really good ChatGPT based chatbot.
Octopus Energy did the same sort of thing.
They have done exactly the same thing. They use NLP on their emails to do sentiment analysis and translation because Octopus Energy will have people here from all sorts of backgrounds. Maybe they don't speak English very well. They can just write in whatever language they want. No worries.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. I did see something recently where someone, I think it was a user, had asked the chatbot to disregard rules about swearing or something. So obviously the chatbot then swore at them.
Oh, nice.
Is there a way of preventing that kind of thing, or do you think that's just going to happen sometimes? It's just a risk with new technology that you can't.
It is a risk with new technology, but it's a risk that should be mitigated. I would not. The way that we build chatbots, we don't just put the raw chatbot endpoint on a website, because it is just a bare endpoint where you can just ask it whatever you like and get responses. So, there's a Chevy dealership that put one out and someone got it to make a binding contract for a Chevy Silverado for $1. So we partnered with a company called Prompt Security, and it's basically like it's like a firewall for LMs. So You know, if you try and do prompt injection, try and extract information out of it, or you try and get the LLM to do something wrong, it's going to scan your prompt first and scan the output, and it can do redactions and it can do all sorts of stuff. So prompt security, our partner, allows us to like say yes to a bunch of things that historically are more difficult to deal with. And that's called guardrailing, where you just guardrail that system in the right way. Yeah, so if you're going to do a chatbot, do not just roll one out there. It's going to be really expensive when you get that lawsuit. Yeah.
So a company, a small to medium-sized company, they're aware they've got lots of manual processes. You said there's a lot of off-the-shelf solutions, but how are they going to know what's a good solution?
I would say go with one that has good community support, because usually that means it's got loads of usage, and you're going to do a lot of beta testing for free, basically, for the company, so they can grow it. Go with one that has like good demos as well. You know, a company that just has a solution, they have a demo, they don't have the documentation of how it works, don't bother going with that. And go with some relatively decent name brands. Like, I think Perplexity, which is an AI search engine, fantastic product. They just came up with a new enterprise search feature, which allows you just to like plug in your company's data and just have like a really amazing search across that, which solves a lot of problems in business. Let me tell you, like, how many times have you gone and emailed someone saying, where is this? Because it's on like, it's either on SharePoint, or it's in Notion, or it's in Slack, or it's in this, or it's in that. You know, forget all that, just smash it all in something and there you go, search. So there's stuff like that is really important, and going with stuff that has good support, good demos, so you can see how it works, and then the rest is pretty much easy. Then you just have to figure out how to integrate all that.
Right. And you said you have to teach systems, or systems need to learn, whatever it is. Is that like weeks, months and years, or is that like you load some data and then 5 minutes later it knows everything?
Oh, it's very easy these days. You know, previously you'd have to do like fine-tuning a model or something, which is like ridiculously hard for regular companies to do, regular developers to do, plus you know hardware and everything. But now you can like do something called retrieval augmented generation, where you basically like you turn all your data into, put it into a database, and then you have a small model that takes your query and it goes into that database and just returns like the relevant information, and then gives that relevant information to the large language model, like ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT then goes, right, okay, I've got the information, and then I'm going to give you the answer. So you only have to build the database part of that. You don't have to like fine tune the giant model.
Right.
Making the database can take, you know, depending on the size of data and the complexity of the data, it's more like days than anything like fine tuning a model, which could take days of training, let alone, you know, days of building. I mean, I've made an RAG database like in 20 minutes last night, so it's really simple these days to do that.
Yeah, it's a very different world from the world I started in. In your world you started in as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, particularly with marketing, content creation, that kind of thing, I see a huge opportunity with AI. But you still do get this like narrative of people being scared about losing their jobs or being replaced, or there's still quite a lot of negative press, I think, about AI. Yeah. Do you think that people should actually be like worried about their jobs and that kind of thing? Or
yes, I would say so. I actually know people that have already been made redundant because of AI.
So what advice would you give to people to protect themselves or put themselves in a stronger position?
Upskill at any cost. I'd say the creative industries are the ones that are going to hit the hardest, because big brands are enabling themselves to bring a lot of those creative stuff in-house by using AI, rather than outsourcing that to other creative agencies. I work with a few creative agencies. They're fantastic. They're very forward-thinking, and because of that, they're going to do very well. Because they ask us for help. They go, you know, hey, how do we do this? We've got a client has this problem. How do we use this AI system to like improve our process and make better assets, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to do exceptionally well. But, you know, companies that don't do that, it's going to be very difficult for them. Very difficult because, for example, if you're making an advertisement for a smartphone, and typically that takes, you know, 2 or 3 months to make, you know, through storyboarding and ideation and all that sort of bits and pieces. And then someone comes along and says, well, you could just do that in about a week instead of using AI. Which one are they going to choose?
Yeah.
So are they going to go to the creative agency with the AI system, or are they going to go to the creative agency that just does it, or with people? So I would say upskill at any cost, and I know that's hard to say because not everyone can do that. But it is, unfortunately, the reality that we're moving in.
You don't think there's going to be a world where there's just going to be a lot of new kinds of jobs?
I do believe that, yes, I do that. I don't know what that is though.
No. Well, if you did, we'd put a bet on it,
But what I will say is, because there's some people that say, no, it's all going to be fine. And some people that say there's going to be no jobs anymore. What I'm saying is, the problem is the transition, right? There are going to be new jobs, and there are going to be jobs that, unfortunately, are not going to be around anymore. That isn't inherently a problem. The problem is, how do you transition those people that have suddenly been made redundant or been made redundant in 2-3 years' time?
Yeah.
And how do you transition those people to something else? How do they transition now after something else? That's the difficult part.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. But then we saw it with the arrival of the internet, which I was kind of there. We have so many jobs now that didn't exist when I first started working, whether it's data analytics or, just telecoms type roles that deal with communication and APIs and data integration. Yeah. None of that existed, and now that's all part and parcel of today's world.
Pretty much.
So I feel, I hear what you say, and it makes a lot of sense, but I like to think optimistically that there will be new roles, new opportunities. It'd be interesting because your children are young, so they're going to grow into a world where AI is the default, I suppose, for everything.
Yeah, they get them coding.
Well, maybe they wouldn't need to, but they just need to understand it and be beneficiaries of it.
This is what I think about coding. Coding is for humans. It's not for machines. Yeah. It's for us. Mm-hmm. And in the future, we won't really need to code, probably.
Yeah.
So what is the thing you think this generation, who are now in like primary school, secondary school, where should they be focusing on, do you think?
Great. So, when you're using AI to make something, because, as good as AI is going to be, it's not going to be something that's going to be constantly running and like iterating and changing. It's just, there's too many data points, even for 10 years time. There's just too much data and too many things to connect at one time.
Yeah.
The real thing about it is, who is the person that's going to tell the AI what to do? And that person needs some inherent knowledge about, let's say business, and let's say some architecture and how things are put together. And then the AI can go off and build that for you and do all these amazing things for you. For example, like in the future, maybe I won't have to code a vector database that has an ORM on it that can do retrieval and give great insights. I can just say, hey, look, this is, I got this client and they need a vector store, and it needs this, and it needs that, and it needs this, and this, and needs to build them all together in this way. And the AI just goes up and builds it, and then I'll just install that piece. That is way more valuable, even I would say today, than just the raw coding part. Knowing how to translate that business problem, whatever business you're in, into like an architected solution, a design solution, is going to be important today. It's going to be important in 50 years' time, regardless of whether there's code or not code. I think that's going to be insanely valuable. Yeah.
But in a way, that reflects the kind of services we provide as well, isn't it? It's about listening to the business owner, understanding what the business problem is, and coming up with a solution. We may not use AI at this point in our lives, but it's the same thing. It's that communication. It's human to human. What's your problem? Can we solve it? Yes, we can, and this is how we do it. Your firm uses high-end technology. We use different skills, but it comes to the same conclusion. It's providing that service.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, actually, when you start asking questions, you identify a different problem than what they originally come to you about anyway.
Very true, yes. Yeah.
We may end up with a new type of language for interacting with machines as well that people will code that's different. Because, as I said before, code is for us and not for machines, right? So, there might be a new code that people might have to learn, whether that's some sort of prompt engineering code or something else that can code more effectively with these machines, or prompt these machines to make software in different ways. And some people will be better at that, and some people will be worse than that. And now you've got a market now, so it could be that as well. I'm actually quite excited, but that'd be quite cool.
Yeah. Out of interest, are all AI models basically the same in terms of how they operate?
Absolutely not.
They're not.
No.
But they still use this statistical basis that you mentioned.
It's all math. Yeah, it's all math.
So it's different kind of maths to achieve a similar result.
Well, a similar result, I wouldn't say. The AI models are made up in layers, right? Input layers of where you put your data in, and output layers where you get your data out. And in between those are hidden layers of mathematical calculations, decision trees, essentially millions upon millions of decision trees that are going through and coming up with a decision, right? And depending on what kind of model you have, let's say a diffusion model that takes text and produces images. Well, it's actually a multimodal model that has a text encoder that's been trained on text and image pairs. So something might have a dog and then an image of a dog. And so okay, if I write dog, these are pictures of dogs. And then it passes those math representations of what you've written into another model, which is a convolutional model, completely different type of model, that then denoises from noise in steps down into a picture of a dog or something like that. So that's just for one model. An LLM is a completely text-to-text decoder-only model. Google BERT was an encoder-decoder model. There's all sorts of models. There's all sorts of things. There are statistical machines, but the models couldn't be more different, I would say, in their architecture, in their makeup, the type of activation functions they use. It's something like reinforcement learning for playing games like AlphaGo or chess. Those are completely different models and different architectures to make that. And that's why that's why me spending my time reading papers and being good at that bit is so important, rather than me trying to be good at many things at once.
Is there a risk of kind of hacking or that kind of thing into these LLMs and kind of telling them like, this is actually a dog?
Yeah.
And kind of messing up the...
Actually, there was just a recent news article from, the company ByteDance?
Yes.
Yes. So one of their interns sabotaged one of their models. They just had to let them go. And they wouldn't say how they sabotaged it or why.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did sabotage it shows you that...
It's like vulnerability.
There's a vulnerability, yeah. I mean, I built a custom tool called TensorKiko. And TensorKiko means... tensor tree in Japanese, and it basically allows you to visualize and bring transparency into a model file, because a model file is just a file. It's just a thing. Like 8 gigabytes of just binary data. It just looks like a nothing. You know what I mean? So I built this tool because I got sent a model that a client was using that they had pre-trained, and I wanted to see what was inside it. What was its makeup? What actually is this thing? So I built this tool and open sourced it with the community, and people are really liking it, which is great. What it does as well is it converts some of the model files into a new format called saved tensors, because the normal model file, you could put arbitrary code in there. And if you load that, you could essentially execute whatever code is in that file and be a massive vulnerability. Whereas saved tensors just stores the tensor information and nothing else. So it does both of those things. And I think going more towards that technology is a good thing, and that's the sort of things that we think about when we're deploying systems, so that the model checkpoints themselves don't have vulnerabilities, the model itself isn't compromised, the biases are okay, the weights are okay, and the rest of the system is okay, rather than just building something and just shipping it. And that's why working with us is super important, because we think about these things, whereas other people without that domain knowledge would just take whatever model they find off Hugging Face or Zenodo or whatever that might be and just plow it into something and off you go, see you later.
That's really tough, I think, for business owners who might be out by that kind of, not knowing who is right for them.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough one. Do I expect business owners to understand checkpoint and pickle files and save tensors? No. But having that awareness of not necessarily the models themselves being secure, but just the overall system is secure, and asking the question. Don't be afraid as a business owner just to ask questions. How are you securing this? Please show me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And for us, we can go, no worries. We built this custom tool called TensorKiko. I'd use 3 lines in my command line, and it shoots up this visualization and goes, right, here are all the layers. Here's everything else. It's in this format. I know how many parameters it's going to use. I know how much computational power it takes to use the model. And the client goes, wow, that's amazing, that's awesome, thanks so much. You guys know what you're talking about. You guys know what's going on in this model, no worries. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating tour, both of your world and the world of AI, and I'm certainly illuminated by this. And I can't believe it's changing so rapidly. I knew it was changing quickly, but every 4 weeks, that's unbelievable, really.
Every 4 weeks, yeah. It's ridiculously fast.
Yeah. And my experience of using just ChatGPT, which is the only thing I've used, has been brilliant. I mean, I don't use Google anymore. I don't know if you do, but I don't see the point. It doesn't give me the answers I want. Whereas ChatGPT and translations, I do translations occasionally. Have to, and it's just so accurate. Well, it seems so accurate.
It's fantastic. Translations. I worked closely with Cohere on a new IA23 and 101 models for multilingual. So we worked with, me and the team worked with like 96 other countries, both engineers, people with domain knowledge in languages. It was an amazing project to really push that forward, because funnily enough, with multilingual stuff, people don't realize, but it's the way they price models is in tokens, right, per token. And there might be 1.3 tokens per English word. But for more underrepresented languages like, let's say, Japanese, it might be a token per symbol. So if you're quoting something as like, let's just say £10 a token, it's going to be relatively cheap for English and extremely expensive for Japanese. So anything that we can do in multilingual to make these models more efficient. And the tokenizer is just something that splits up these words into like just little representations for the model. It's like a dictionary of vocabulary. So it basically goes through and looks at it and goes, right, well, I've seen and a bunch of times, so I'm going to store and as a whole token. But with Japanese, it might not have that domain knowledge to understand what that is. So it just stores the individual icons of that. And that makes the model slower to do Japanese. It also makes it worse performing because it doesn't understand like the whole word. It just understands the individual things. So, if you're spelling something out, you have to do letter by letter by letter. And then hopefully you understand what you've written is focus by the FOCUS rather than just saying focus. So that's the real difference to that. And so that's something we really tried to push forward, and we did really, really well. I think they won Paper of the Year this year. And I love my friends over Cohere. They're awesome people. Really awesome.
Yeah. We, as we draw this podcast to a close, we always ask our previous podcast guests to come up with a question to the next podcast guest. And the idea is just to get a response and a challenge. And our last guest asked question was, my mind's now gone blank. Good.
With hindsight, if you went back to when you started your business, would you do it again? And if you did do it again, would you do anything differently?
Wow. Yes, I would do it again. Absolutely, 100%. No questions asked. What would I do differently? I would say I would say no more to things.
Right.
There's an element sometimes in early stage of business that you say yes to lots of things.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time doing things that potentially aren't revenue generating. And so I would say no more things and understand what's more important in the early stages. Yeah, that's the only thing that changed. Doesn't matter now, but that's the only thing I would change probably. Yeah.
That's really valuable for anyone who is really early stage, but it's still saying yes to things they maybe shouldn't.
Yeah, that's definitely valuable. And what question would you have for our next podcast guest?
What's the most annoying thing that you have to do at work?
That's a very good question. Yeah, are they only allowed one answer?
It's the most annoying. It's the top one. It's the top one,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been very good and really enjoyed it.
Thanks. Likewise.
Thank you.